good mental health comes for me, from good physical fitness. It helps me get to a point where I've got the mental health to be able to be resilient and take on a challenge.
Welcome to the Tomorrow Is Not Today podcast. You've already started to create the life you want just by being here. Designed for you as a business professional so you can be physically, mentally and emotionally healthy, more productive, less stressed and living a life you truly love. My name's Kingsley and thank you for coming on another journey with one of our uniquely qualified professionals. Today's guest, Todd O'Connor, lived the typical Sydney corporate high-flying lifestyle, corporate career, had everything going for him, corporate banking, high-end property development, and all sorts of other things in the midst there as well. Driving along the road in Sydney to work one day, taking forever to get to work, he realized this wasn't for me. I'm stuck in a job being told what to do every day, even though it looked fantastic from the outside. Decided to pivot his career. Ended up buying surf stores, owning a number of those, and changing again a couple of other businesses to where he owns another business today, helping a lot of other career people in their small businesses as well. You want to hear this story because it's going to take you from maybe where you are today, learning how to pivot, the thought process, the mindset that goes into pivoting, and the difference it can make in your life. But you do need to take courage. Good morning, Todd, and welcome to the Tomorrow Is Not Today podcast. Thank you for joining us today.
Good morning, Kingsley, and thanks for your invitation. Looking forward to it.
No, me too. Just catch up the other day, and what we've been talking about over a little period of time has been very, very interesting to me. And it's certainly, I want to get your perspective on things because I think it's a little bit different perspective to what a lot of people have. But at the same time, there's a lot of people going through the phase of life that you've been through. And I think it can help with some of the ways of pivoting, not pivoting, decisions to make, not to make, and that sort of thing. So,
sure, absolutely. Yeah.
Todd, currently your business is My Pharmacy Appraisal. That's what it's called, isn't
Correct.
it?
Correct. Yep.
Yeah, just had to
yes,
remember
it is.
the
My
last
Pharmacy
name there.
Appraisal.
My Pharmacy Appraisal, which is fantastic, but it's not where you started, and that's what I want to go back to. So to hit us off, like we like to in this podcast, straight up tell us, how do you know if it's time to pivot in your career, especially if things are going really well for you?
Yeah, look, interesting question, Kingsley. And my career pivot, my big career pivot happened probably in my mid-30s. I'd been a corporate and merchant banker for many, many years and had been headhunted across to one of my major clients. And it was still very much in that corporate finance role that I was in. But I'd found myself in a situation where, although enjoying the fruits of my labour with respect to status and income, etc., what I was finding was that I was leaving home in the morning and my small children were in bed, and I was getting home in the evening and my kids were in bed, and often I'd have to attend events on weekends and things like that, and it was, it was just not it was not in my makeup. It wasn't what I wanted to do. And in fact, it was one day driving along beside on Grand Parade at Botany, and I think I'd travelled from the Shire into the city in Sydney, and I think I'd travelled about 2 or 3 Ks in about 40 minutes and in traffic, and I just said to my wife later on that evening, this is not me. I can't see me doing this for another 15, 20 years. This is not what I want to do. It's time that we created something for ourselves. And I think what it really comes down to is basically having the courage to back yourself, to know that you've already picked up some good skill sets, and you've got a fairly reasonable understanding of how life works. So we decided to pursue something that essentially was my passion, which was surfing. And so we ended up purchasing and owning several surf stores on the Sunshine Coast for about 14 or 15 years. But back to your question, that it was really, it wasn't what I was doing was enjoyable. There was great status, there was great money, but it was tearing away at me on my insides around what I really wanted to do with my wife and with my family. And so the time came to make a pivot. I think it was absolutely, apart from marrying my wife and having my children, the best thing that I could have ever done.
It's really interesting, Todd, how you go there, because I think a lot of people are in that position where they've got the status, they've got the money, their career's looking good, and from the outside, a lot of people will be going, wow, that's amazing. I'd love to be in that position. But while that's going on the inside, it sounds like there's a bit of a turmoil going on, and almost like you didn't want to be there. How long did it actually take to get to that point where you made a decision?
Well, look, it wasn't actually all that hard. Where I'd gone to was an exciting role, and we were doing some really high end finance sort of things, but it came with a lot of pressure as well. So there was the pressure of what was going on with my family life, but also pressure in that corporate world. And my employer was a particularly difficult and challenging taskmaster as well. So, I'd be mowing the lawns on a Saturday afternoon and be getting phone calls from him and things like that. So, it basically said to me, is it my life or is it his life, and where do I want to devote my time and my energy? And so it wasn't a particularly difficult situation for me at the end of the day to say, look, the most challenging aspects of something like this, you're going from a corporate world to small business. You need to raise capital. Where does the capital come from? The capital often comes from your home. And so we, in fact, sold our home. We, in fact, sold an investment unit that I had with my brother. And so we used that capital to invest into business. So that was a bigger challenge at the end of the day, was taking that capital and punting on yourself that you're going to be able to turn it into some success, which we were able to do, which was also very pleasing.
There's so much in there in what you're just saying, and I can just hear people's heads going around at the moment, asking questions, questioning themselves. What do I do? Where do I go? How does this all fit in? There's so much. And the good news is, and the reason you're here is because you've been through this. You know what it's like mentally, on your family, physically, all of that sort of thing to make that happen. Obviously, you moved into this position because of career, money, and that helping. So were you feeling like this when you were in your original commercial banking role, or was it not really felt then until later on?
No. Well, look, good question. I'd actually moved banks several times, so I think that there was a little bit of a restless spirit there already. I sensed that I had a little bit more of a entrepreneurial spirit than probably was welcomed in the banks. In the banks, it's even today, but back then it was follow the process. But you had the opportunity to build relationships, but in terms of the spirit of entrepreneurship, I think that's you've got to look. Some people are made to be career bankers or career whatevers, and good luck to them. I think that wasn't the case for me, but what they did do for me was that they gave me a really good grounding in analysis. It gave me a really good understanding in what the corporate world's all about. It gave me a really good understanding of why it's such an important thing, for example, an obscure thing, but to diary note important conversations. So because I know later on it held me in really good stead when I found myself in some commercial situations that were a bit challenging. But look, it gave me some exposure to what's expected of you. When you go out there and you sign personal guarantees and you sign up for large amounts of debt, et cetera, et cetera. You take on a director's responsibilities that go with all of that sort of thing. So there's nothing wrong with absolutely the grounding that I got in a commercial bank environment. It was how to work with all sorts of different people, the chain of command, how to prepare submissions and papers that would get approved, so that they were well researched and well thought through, and then to be able to take that and bring it into a small business environment, where I went through a process of going through exactly what I would expect a client to be able to produce, but at the same time, not smart enough, but understood that I needed to get good advice from an accountant, good advice from a solicitor, but recognizing at the same time that they would give you good accounting advice and they would give you good legal advice, but that's not necessarily commercial advice. It's like that's that little grey area in the middle that you work out whether or not they'll tell you all of the risks. You work out whether or not you've actually been prepared to accept those risks, etc. So I think commercial banking gave me a really good understanding of mapping that transition out, and then really joining the client that I was headhunted across to, and then finding that my time was his time, sort of triggered me to go across to, okay, time to really test my entrepreneurial skills and my entrepreneurial spirit.
So when you were in that phase of deciding what to do and the high pressure and that sort of thing, you mentioned a little bit earlier that it did have a little bit of a toll on the family, as you imagine it definitely would have. How did that affect you, I guess, mentally, with your sleep? I know you're a fairly fit sort of guy. How did that affect your routines and all that sort of thing? Could you have them in place, or was that sort of a little bit dictated to from an external position?
And you've sort of hit the nail on the head there a bit. I know that I do my best work when I'm at my fittest, and that can be good mental health comes for me from good physical fitness. It helps me get to a point where I've got the mental health to be able to be resilient and take on a challenge. And that's been my mantra, and it's been my doctrine since my commercial banking days. I love sport. I love my swimming. I love, for example, back in those days, I was big into footy, soccer, touch football, all of those sort of things.
Whatever it is, you're into it.
Yeah, and just found that that enabled me to maintain a level of mental health that I needed to maintain to be able to take on those challenges. And look, the interesting thing that comes out of, okay, you're leaving a corporate environment where you're working long hours and you're often called upon on the weekends. What's going to be the difference when you move into small business? I mean, I moved into retail. I moved into surf store ownership in retail. What's going to be the difference? Why do you think, Todd, all of a sudden moving from that to that is going to alleviate your problems with respect to spending time with your family? But look, the honest truth of that is that as a small business owner, you can walk away when you want to. You can set aside time. You can train people to step into roles as managers or as understudies, and so you have got the opportunity to drive your kids to school in the morning, to leave work a little early and go and pick them up and do some rugby training, or to go and watch some netball being played, to share those responsibilities with your wife as your kids grow, whereas you're just not able to do that in in a corporate environment. Those opportunities. Look, that might have changed a little bit with work from home, but that wasn't the case around when I was in the corporate world.
Yeah, and I think for the most part, it's still not as flexible as it was. And I must admit, that's one of the things I love about being self-employed is you can get to do those things when you want to. So
Yep.
a good example, even just today, is my daughter. It was her birthday yesterday, but she was off with friends camping at Moreton Island, so I didn't get to see her. But I took off this morning and went around, just spent a couple of hours with her this morning, and just doing that in her house, and just having the flexibility to be able to do that is a phenomenal thing. And I think one of the things that people see as well is if I've got this corporate and things are going well financially, it's good, and I'm climbing the ladder and it all looks good, and you got the toys and all that sort of things happening. But I think an alignment of values is one of the most important things we can give ourselves in our career or what we do with our life. And it sounds like that's what you decided as well. When you changed from, it's a big change from big corporate finance through to surf store, small business owners.
Well, look, there's challenges there's awesome challenges in the world that I was in, but there's just as many and just as rewarding and just as many fantastic challenges involved in small business as well. It's what's driven us, my wife and I, in our years in small business was, we loved the challenge, but we loved the relationships that we built with people as well. I was a relationship manager in corporate banking, and I enjoyed developing those relationships. But it was no different moving into the surf industry and into retail. We had some fantastic young people work with us, and it was one of the most rewarding things that we could ever have done was to bring young people through from 15, 16-year-olds right through till finishing university. We literally had over 100 people working for us over that period of time, and we're still in touch with them many years later, and watch them grow and start to have their own families. It was incredibly rewarding. But then the challenges of making sure the cash flow challenges, the meeting your commitments, meeting deadlines, meeting timelines around stock buying, getting your head around all of those new. It was I basically became apprentices, even though we were business owners as in the retail trade. But we went on to win many, many awards as a result of that. It's just about application. It's just about passion. It's about enjoying it. But the other thing was that we were able to bring up our kids in it as well. So our daughter Lauren and our son Ben both became employees and enjoyed the experience as well. So
Yeah, nice.
it's a great environment, small business, as is corporate. It's just a matter of my brother is a case in point of a corporate banker that's done that his entire life, and he's obviously enjoyed it and done well out of it. Just wasn't the case for myself.
And that's. I'm glad you mentioned that because I want to go back a little bit because there's obviously certain people who they love that corporate lifestyle and they don't want to do anything else. They love that, and which is fantastic. So, for those types of people who do love being in that place, how do you get through? Because obviously there's a lot of mental toughness you have to have there, and a lot of resilience you need to be able to have. Just the same as there is in small business, but it's a different feel. It looks a little bit different, I guess. How do you handle that sort of thing, and how do you get yourself in the right position to be able to keep going when that happens in a corporate role where you don't have as much, I guess, time flexibility?
Yeah, look, I think that's a huge challenge for people in that position, and I think it's a huge challenge for their employers as well. And I really think it's something that that more and more large businesses need to take into account. That look, they're getting paid time off, and they get 4 weeks annual leave or whatever it is, and then after 10 years they get some superannuation, some long service leave, etc., etc. But taking the time to be able to look, it's a different type of person. It's someone that's I always use the word they know how to play a political game. Politics is a really big thing in large corporates. Sometimes you've just got to bite your tongue and not say things, but is that the right way to go? You see big banks and big organisations making all sorts of blunders around wages or around other things that they're not doing with respect to community standards, etc. And you're just wondering whether it's people being scared to be a whistleblower or people being scared to bring it up because they're more concerned about their career. So there's enormous challenges for creating an environment where people feel comfortable enough to be able to say what they need to say, or to be able to step away and look after their own personal health. It's a huge, huge issue. And, people like yourself with Tomorrow Is Not Today, you're right. You're probably seeing this on a far more regular basis than I am. But they need to reach out to people like you and listen to people like you, the experiences that you come across, to be able to navigate through some really challenging times. I think one of the most powerful things that's come through to me at my age, I'm in my mid-60s now, and one of the most powerful things that's come through to me is that people that stay in a corporate environment all their life have a very blinkered view of the world. They only see it from that perspective. And I think there's a really powerful thing that comes out of that is about don't judge someone unless you know the whole story. And I think that a lot of people in that who've only lived in a corporate world and have only paid mind to the paymaster, if you like, they only view things from a blinkered, narrow perspective. And it can be an employee, it can be the middle management, it can be executive. And I think that introducing a guest such as myself to that environment can be powerful, because I've been fortunate enough to be able to work in a corporate world and in a small business world as an employer, and then in a small business world as self-employed. So you get to see the full gambit. You get to see and understand the challenges from so many different perspectives.
Yeah, it's a very good point that you make about having a blinkered sort of view on things. And that is in particular, if, like you said, you've had all those different three experiences, but not everybody does. And even with you're in small business in a particular industry or whatever, it is very, very easy to see things just from that angle. And that's one reason I encourage people as often possible, get out of your comfort zone, go and travel, go and talk to people. If you want to learn how to market your business, go to a business that's in a completely different industry and have a look what they do.
Yep.
Because it's amazing what you can look at and go, wow, I would never have thought of doing that, bringing it back and adopting into your own business or your own industry to market or to reach people or build relationship with people. And just gets out of that head, of that narrow-minded of how to go about things. So I think that's a brilliant point that you made. No matter which scenario you're in or you have been in, just having a broader look at things like that, I think, is fantastic.
I was just going to say, and what follows off the back of that is, don't assume that everyone thinks the way that you do. And I'm not saying it particularly to you, but I'm saying it to those people in whether it be people in small business or whether it be people in a corporate world. Don't assume that everyone thinks the same way that you do. I had a really interesting situation not long ago where we were buying pharmacies, and and someone heavily involved in our on our team was quite aggressive. How he went about it, and you know assumed that every single situation was going to end up in a litigious situation because there was going to be people that would be doing the wrong thing. Now, you know, I believe that was simply because he had a litigious nature, and at the end of the day, he assumed that everyone else would go down that path. Now, not everyone's like that. Not everyone's out to screw the next person, or vice versa. It's you've got to guard against it, but don't assume that everyone will think the same way that you do.
Yeah, no, it's a really good point, especially when you put it into those scenarios you're talking about how people think around those lines as well. And I think now people are starting to change the way they approach things in business to a large degree. Not everybody, obviously, but a lot of people are having, I think, a more an approach like you do, is like, no, we don't need to go down that track. There are other ways to work things through and come to agreements and things like that as well. And that's what I do like about your approach to things, is it can all work together for good for everybody if we approach it the right
Yeah,
way. And I love how you go
absolutely.
about things that way. So now tell me, so you're coming out of the high corporate, high stress area, and then you go from Brisbane, from Sydney, in the middle of Sydney, through to Sunshine Coast surf shops. Now that's not a little mindset change. That is a big mind change in there. Tell me, how
Yeah,
did
yeah,
you
yeah.
adjust to that? And was it actually, it might seem like, oh, piece of cake, of course that's going to be easy. But not necessarily when you've gone down a path for so many years and a certain lifestyle for so many years, when you completely change it. How was it going down that path?
Oh, fantastic. I mean, I had 18 years of suits and ties, and working in the middle of the Sydney CBD, but and enjoyed that. Didn't bother me whatsoever that I had to put a suit and tie on each morning and head into work. That wasn't an issue. And then owning surf stores, it was board shorts, t-shirts, and thongs
Yeah.
on the sunny coast. Look, that wasn't hard to take either. So, but you've got to feel comfortable and natural around those environments. Funnily enough, what we found was that surf stores could be really cliquey places. Where only the cool dudes and cool girls sort of hung out. And we've gone up there as in our late to late 30s, with an 8-year-old and a 6-year-old, and certainly wasn't a pro surfer, though I could surf reasonably well, but I wasn't a gun surfer. And we weren't the coolest kids on the block, that's for sure. But what we recognised was that there was a lot of people who aspired to the brands and aspired to the lifestyle, and they were the ones that we targeted as being, our clientele. Those people that were, were a little bit dorky, didn't spend much time in the water, but still were comfortable, or still wanted to buy a pair of Andy Irons Billabong board shorts, or a Quicksilver T-shirt, or a Rip Curl backpack, or whatever, because they aspired to the lifestyle, and they were the ones that we were very comfortable welcoming into our store, and the store just went ballistic. It went extremely well, to the point where we had to expand it and build a second.
Yeah, which is fantastic, especially coming the way you did. Is that partly because you embrace those people that may not have necessarily fit in with the traditional surf store, surf culture type thing, but you embrace them in? Because I know up on the Sunshine Coast, having lived there for a number of years myself, it is very much that sort of a lifestyle. You're dressed up when you put a button shirt on rather than the t-shirt, and
Oh,
it's very different.
absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, it's a different feel. It's a different environment. And so not everybody necessarily surfed, but they did like enjoying the beach. They did enjoy the lifestyle, layback lifestyle there. And so part of what you did, by the sounds of things, was embracing those people who loved being there, even though they weren't traditionally a surfy type person.
Correct. Yeah, absolutely. It was, you know, people up from Brisbane, people up from Victoria and Melbourne on holidays at Mooloolaba. They were up there to embrace the lifestyle, and we were happy to be a part of that journey with them.
And so it didn't sound like it took you too long to embrace that lifestyle yourself, get involved with the people, the lifestyle, I guess the atmosphere, the beach culture, and that sort of thing for you. Even though you're a surfer, obviously the beach was not foreign to you, but for you and for your family and your kids, you sort of embraced it fairly quickly.
We did early on. One of the new experiences for us was to become buyers. So we would be, you'd be buying, next season's product in advance on indent, essentially. So you'd be buying, anywhere between 3 and 6 months in advance, and you'd be doing it out of range books and out of, samples and things like that. And fortunately or unfortunately, very early on, I had to go to a women's range showing because my wife wasn't available. Traditionally, I'll buy the men's, she would buy the women's, and I got sent very early on to a women's buying one because she just wasn't available at that particular time. I came home with a range book. I'd sat and enjoyed watching a range. Two young ladies show me bikinis and cut-off denim shorts for about 2 hours. Came home with a range book that had triple ticks through on every single item in the book, and I got banned from doing range showings after that.
At least you got to enjoy yourself. So now,
Yeah,
you had your surf stores, they grew, that all happened. Now, there's obviously pressure with a small business as well, especially when it's growing. You've got staff. How did you, I guess, take the staff and work with them to be able to get them to work with you and your culture as well? Because obviously, if you had 100 people working for you at one point, that's a lot of people to look after. What did you put in place for yourself?
yeah. Look, it was 100 people over the entire time, or over 100 people over that entire. Yeah, but look, we interestingly enough, my wife was the employer, the recruiter, if you like. One of the questions that she would regularly look for in someone was whether or not they were they'd been, and these are young kids. These are, school age kids essentially for a lot of them. Do you play team sports? So we were looking on a regular basis for young folk that had that had some, had a smile and some personality, and whether or not they played some team sports. So they understood that they were coming in and that they were going to be a part of the team. And it was my wife, Rosalind's, and my role was to make sure that they were set up with the stock and with the processes to be able to complete a sale. Their role in the store, the young people's role in the stores, was to be able. They were, if you like, the signposts within the store, and they could direct people to where they needed to go. Everyone needed to be greeted. Everyone needed to come in with a smile, and everyone needed to be, introduced and shown where to go within the store. Give them time, and then to help them through a process of purchasing a product or several products, etc. But our role very much was to give them what they needed to be able to sell to or show a product. Our role was to get people into the store and to make sure that the staff had what they needed to be able to complete sales, etc. So yeah, look, it sort of wasn't rocket science in that respect. It was more, well, how would you like to be treated? A lot of guys don't like to go shopping. So, for example, one of the things we were one of the first stores to ever do it. We actually introduced a big blokes corner, and we had a specific corner in the stores where we went and put anything that was double XL or larger.
Right.
Big double XLs, size 38, size 40s, all of that sort of thing, triple XLs, whether it be rash shirts, whether it be t-shirts, whether it be walk shorts, whether it be board shorts, we all put it into one specific corner. And what would happen, the number of times that a woman would come in and, be approached by one of the young staff and, I'm shopping for my husband. Yeah, look, he's a big guy, and we could take them directly to a range that was specifically set aside and designed for bigger guys. Or we'd have a big guy come in who was not a good shopper, and we could sort of lead him over and say, well, look, hunt through there because that's where you're going to find things that suit you, etc. It was just finding, understanding that the target market and what some of their challenges were, and facilitating something that suited them. And it was an incredibly successful part of our stores, was being able to do something like that.
Yeah, and I think they would definitely appreciate that. And I'm picking up that you look for where people are at and how can you help people, serve people where they are at. What you mentioned before, I want to hone in on a little bit here, is the fact that when you were looking for your staff, you weren't necessarily looking for top grades or the best skills or anything like that. You wanted someone with a personality and who knew who to work with other people. I think that's really, really interesting because obviously you can teach skills, but the fact that you wanted a personality, a smile, and someone who knew to work with people was, to me, is very interesting. Is that something you learned earlier on from your commercial days, or how did you come across that and understand that in regards to working with people?
Look, it's a little bit of, we had some. I can remember a particular young lady who came in that who worked for us, and very shy, but she was in, when you got to know her, she was engaging and she had a lovely smile, and it was about nurturing her and bringing out the skill set or the personality in her, so that she had the confidence to be able to approach customers. And I can remember she was in the store with one of our more experienced employees, and someone came in and they said, well, go on, off you go and talk to this new customer, go and greet them and say hello. And she's going, no, I don't want to. I don't know what to say. And she said, well, just go over there, give her a smile and say hi and welcome to the store, and started off that way. And to see the confidence grow in these young people as they went through that little journey and they went through that process, and it's something that Ros and I reflect on. It was we still are friends with this particular person on Facebook, and to see those sort of things, and where she's gone on to, and to know that you were a part of helping that young person on that early journey, it's an incredibly rewarding thing. So, my very first experience, funnily enough, was working at David Jones in the Market Street store in Sydney, in the men's suiting area, while I was still at school. You're placed in a situation, and it's again facing fears, isn't it? It's about being put into positions that you're not comfortable with, and rising to meet that challenge. And this young lady did it, and back in the day, I did it because at the end of the day, you had to do it, or you didn't have a job. So
Yeah.
it's what you do.
And it's such an important thing to do that. And I think if people can take that away from this, as well as a whole bunch of good things that you've mentioned, but to step out of your comfort zone. If you are in a place where you're looking about, do I keep my career going? Things are going well, but it's not aligning with who I am. I want to express myself a bit more, spread my wings. I've got other desires, things I want to do. Maybe put a bit of a plan in place, have a chat with some people, but sooner or later, you're going to have to bite the bullet and do it. And there's no greater feeling than doing something that you fear and overcoming that, and being in that place, moving out in that direction. And on top of that, what you just said about learning to work with other people, learning to just be bold in front of people, understand people, putting them in the right place. Like if a big person comes in, here's a section for you. We understand how you might be feeling. Here's a great place. We've made this comfortable for you. I think that's incredibly powerful. It's almost an oxymoron. You're making things comfortable for people, but at the same time, we need to get out of our own comfort zone. So to me, it's get out of your own comfort zone, but what can you do to make other people feel comfortable, wanted, I guess, loved, and in a place where people do want them there?
Yep.
That might seem almost a bit of a stretch from what's coming, but that's what I'm getting out of what you're saying at the moment.
Look, it absolutely is. There were reasons. At the end of the day, we ended up selling those businesses, and there were reasons why we needed to, went down that path. But we eventually sold those businesses. But what it had done was that it fueled a passion in me around helping small business owners. Because I understand, I've been down that journey. I've taken a lot of scars and a lot of challenges that have come through that, and I understand how time and capital poor small business owners can be. It's why I went on to create My Pharmacy Appraisal. It's why I went on to create 6 Foot Glass. These are ways, they're platforms, if you like, that I've created that have taken all of those corporate banking and all those corporate experiences, and then later on all of my experiences in the pharmacy industry, on to a point where I'm constantly looking at ways that I can add on to those platforms so that small business owners, you don't need to subscribe. There's an awful lot of information on those things that you can get out of that can help small business owners. So, I call it there's a strategy page, a strategy and business improvement page on My Pharmacy Appraisal, and essentially it's all about a resource to help small business owners on their journey.
So tell us a little bit more about what you are doing now. We're coming to the close where we've got to wrap up, unfortunately, because time-wise. But tell us a little bit about what you're doing now and how it is helping people. I guess expand a little bit on what you were just saying there.
Yeah. Look, the principal platform is My Pharmacy Appraisal. After I sold my businesses, I spent 12 years in the pharmacy industry. And essentially what that was doing valuations, looking at the values of pharmacies, buying and selling pharmacies, etc. So I got to look at a lot of P&Ls. I got to look at a lot of pharmacies physically. I got to learn to really break down and understand the drivers behind a community pharmacy. And My Pharmacy Appraisal's taken all of that analytical skills of my banking days, the small business skills where I was a retailer, and then those 10, 12 years looking at pharmacy. So it's about pouring the first 2 into the third, if you like, and then creating My Pharmacy Appraisal so that there's a demographic mapping tool on there. There's a SWOT analysis on there. There's business plans on there. There's an appraisal platform on there. There's a a strategy and business improvement platform, part of it on there as well. So it's a resource centre for pharmacists that they can subscribe to. They can undertake an appraisal of their pharmacy. They can then sell. It creates an executive summary. They can sell their pharmacy if they wish to. They can look for a business partner or a junior partner to come in. They can use it as a landing spot to undertake a strategic review of their pharmacy. They might want to go in and have a really good look and understand what the demographics around their particular pharmacy is, and whether or not they've got the right branding for their pharmacy. So it's a real
Very in depth.
chest. Yeah, it's a chest of opportunities for someone
Yeah.
to dive into and have a really good look. And so people just subscribe to it. Most people subscribe to the mapping tool, which is a partnership that I've got with a business called Geotech Information Services, and that was something that we put together when I was at Ramsay Healthcare, and it was a brilliant platform that would be too expensive for a community pharmacist to get to access. But what we've done is that we've made it accessible to a small business owner, to be honest, for $250 plus GST so per annum. So it's a really great resource around mapping all the drivers that they can use within their small business, their community pharmacy.
Yeah, which is those tools can be invaluable sometimes if you pick them up and actually apply them. It's one thing to get it and have a look at it, but when you apply them, makes a massive, massive difference. And that's something that not just for pharmacy people, that's for any small business that would be helpful for.
Oh, you've absolutely nailed it. People sign up to it and then don't spend time hunting and gathering on it. There is so much information on there, whether they're looking to acquire another pharmacy, whether they're looking to buy their first pharmacy, or whether they're looking to take their particular pharmacy and understand where they can use this particular tool for further business development, further understandings of their pharmacy. And for example, we did the census in 2021. So all of the data from Census 2021 is now being overlaid into all of this mapping tool as well. So it's a brilliant tool, but you're right. You've got to get on there and use it, and it would work for pretty well most retail environments, most retail situations.
Okay, awesome. So, Todd, as we come to an end, two more things, but I need to ask you a couple of questions. We always talk here about creating your ultimate tomorrow. So tell me, what is your ultimate tomorrow?
I think my ultimate tomorrow for me is time with my wife, my children, and my grandchildren. Up here in Queensland, on the Sunshine Coast. Time with them, time with as much time as I can spend with them. Last Friday, I was at my granddaughter's swimming lessons, and she, after the swimming lessons, we went with my daughter and the grandson, who's only 6 months old. We went to she's 2.5, and we went to the local cafe. And they've got a grassy area there, and she wanted to take her shoes and socks off, and her mother told her that she wasn't allowed to do that. That's my daughter. She wasn't allowed to do it, and so I joined her and I took my shoes and socks off. So she felt that she had a partner in crime. So she took her shoes and socks off, and she was, we got naughty together, and we went and showed.
That's awesome.
We went and showed my daughter, and my daughter took a photo of it and sent it on to my wife. But my granddaughter, 2.5, loved it that Papa had been naughty with her and took his shoes and socks off. And hey, that's my ultimate tomorrow.
That's awesome. So tell me, how do you go about creating your ultimate tomorrow?
Courage, resilience, humility, back yourself, speak, step out, as you've pointed out, face your fears, step outside your comfort zone. Have a listen to Tomorrow Is Not Today podcasts, because it's full of great tips and hints. It's that's what you've got to do. You've got to be able to you've got to have courage of your conviction, have the resilience, back yourself, and seek some guidance, because we don't know it all. There's too many people who think they're the smart. Well, they probably don't think it, but they come across as smartest person in the room. Don't be that smartest person in the room. Listen to other people. Listen to those experiences, because they're invaluable.
It's interesting you say all those things, and they seem like the hard things to do until you actually do them. And then you realize it's not actually that hard, but the growth and the learning and the wisdom you gain out of it is absolutely huge. So, Todd, anyone who wants to catch up with you, they may have a small business, they may have a pharmacy, they may be looking at buying a pharmacy or a small business or something like that. What's the best way for people to get in touch with you?
Look through mypharmacyappraisal.com.au. All of my contact details are on that platform.
Okay, fantastic. You're happy for people just to reach out, email, just jump on the internet there?
Absolutely. Email or telephone. Yep, they're both my phone and my email are on there. So by all means, reach out. Happy to travel, happy to talk, happy to email. I'm ready to assist where I can.
Awesome. Todd, thank you so much for joining us on the Tomorrow's Not Today podcast. I know we've hit things from a little bit of a different angle today, and I'm really excited about that, because I think it's something that a lot of people go through their minds and they talk about and think about, but it's not easy making a massive decision and a massive change like that. So hopefully, we've spurred on some people to I guess, take their life back into their hands, which is what you have done. You decided on the road, heading up to Sydney from home that morning, and hopefully other people can do that. Again, some people, they love the corporate life, and that's fantastic. Go at it and go hard. But for people who think, hey, maybe it's time for a change, like Todd said, have the guts, have the courage, step out of what might be comfortable and create the life that you want. Thank you so much, Todd, for joining us. I really appreciate it.
Look, it's been awesome, Kingsley. Fantastic doing this with you. Really appreciated the opportunity. Cheers, mate. Thank you.
Create the life you want.